So, good afternoon and welcome to the University of Manchester Career Service session. This is part of Finalist Fortnight, final year Fortnight. So if you're in your final year of university, you're in the right place. Hoping today that you'll find this session really useful. It's very much about adapting and planning. If you've had a plan that perhaps hasn't worked out and you're now reconfiguring, hopefully today you will find this session useful. I do have a couple of colleagues with me today, so we'll do some introductions. I should firstly say that my name's Penny, and I am one of the careers consultants as part of the career service team. I'll hand over to Bernadette.
Hi, my name is Bernadette Lyons. I'm a careers consultant at the University of Manchester and here to answer all of your questions. Thank you.
And hi, I'm Helen Frost. So I'm also a careers consultant. I work specifically with the Faculty of Science and Engineering, and I'll be behind the scenes answering questions as well.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. So as Bernadette and Helen have said, they are here to answer your questions. So what you will find, you'll have a toolbar. It usually appears on the right-hand side. There's a little arrow with questions, and within that section, you can actually submit questions. And Bernie and Helen will pick those up and respond to those. What we've agreed is where there's a kind of the same question being asked, we'll keep those towards the end and we'll bring Helen and Bernadette back in and we'll just have a bit of a discussion around those questions and answer those as part of a discussion. So don't feel like you're being ignored if you don't get an immediate response. Just to make you aware, today's session is being recorded and will be loaded to the YouTube channel. So if you want to rewatch this or you want to tell any peers or colleagues about this recording, please feel free to access that on the YouTube channel. That should be on there in the next few days. If you need any help or assistance, you can raise your hand. Again, on the right hand side there, the toolbar, you can engage with us just by, if you look at attendees, your name should be on there and you can just pop a hand up and one of the team will come back to you. So for today, I have a short presentation that we'll work through. I'll ask Bernadette and Helen just to pop off their cameras now. I'm actually going to turn mine off as well, just so that I'm not distracting you from the actual content of the presentation. Okay, so in terms of the kind of slides that we'll go through, I'm just going to walk through those now. So the kind of first thing I guess to cover is really what the session's about. So these are the kind of key areas that will be covered today. So talking about what you're going to need and sort of stay motivated. Going to cover a little bit about the labour market. So just the kind of current context, and there will be some reference there to kind of the pandemic and COVID-19 and some of the challenges that are around at the moment.
Penny, it's just Helen. Penny, hi. The slides aren't showing. I'm not sure if there's a button that you need to click to do that.
Okay. Sorry, so just bear with me, everyone. Apparently the slides aren't showing.
That's better. Can see it now. Yeah. Thank you.
Let me hand back. So apologies about that. This is the slide that I was just going through. So what you're going to need, which I've said before, is kind of around motivation, the labour market, some of the challenges that are out there at the moment. A little bit about where to find vacancies. I think that would be quite helpful in terms of if you are still searching, where you are now, and many of you will be at different stages of your career and your plans, what employers are looking for, and this is based on recent conversations that we've had with employers who are looking to recruit students. I'm going to talk a little bit about application and interviews and really where people tend to get stuck sometimes and perhaps don't progress. We'll talk about some action that you can take. And right at the end, we'll cover how you can get more support and advice. So the labour market, you are all fully aware, I imagine, of the pandemic, and it has had an impact, significant impact on the labour market. The level of recruitment is not as it was before the pandemic. So many students that we are seeing at the moment, particularly those coming towards the end of their study, are feeding back that they're finding it quite challenging. Perhaps some are feeling a little bit even demotivated at the moment. We want to reassure you that there are opportunities out there. It's important to stay positive, but in terms of job searching and actually trying to get those opportunities, there's more competition, which means you've just got to try a bit harder and be a bit more persistent than you possibly would normally be. So just to give you an update from some of the employers that we're working with, some are actually saying, look, we need that graduate talent, we want to recruit you, but actually because of the pandemic, we're having to sort of move things around and actually delay start dates for some graduates. So perhaps if you were due to start in June or July, some employers are saying, actually, we would rather you just hold fire and start with us perhaps in September or October. Some employers are actually advertising roles that are starting in early 2021, so around January time. So I guess that's reassuring that there are opportunities out there, there are jobs, but you may not start those positions at a time that you would have expected to because of the circumstance. Sadly, some graduate schemes have been cancelled. Employers have decided, you know, there's just so much going on, they're having to try and retain their own staff and manage this crisis. So they've actually decided to cancel some graduate schemes. Reassuringly, we have not heard of this happening en masse. It's been, you know, a minimal number of employers that have reported to us, actually, we're not going to run our schemes this year. So again, that's a really reassuring message. In terms of the kind of the sectors most affected by the pandemic, I've just listed there, this is not exclusive, but the kind of bigger ones that have been hit are built environment, finance, the energy sector and engineering. I've made reference there to SMEs. These are small and medium-sized enterprises. So what we find typically this time of year, those smaller businesses or medium-sized enterprises tend to recruit students, tend to recruit graduates. Again, the volume of applications there, the volume of opportunities is not as it would normally be at this time of year. Unfortunately, SMEs have been probably more significantly hit than those bigger corporates that are in existence. We've also seen a shift to online recruitment. Now, many of the big companies do this anyway. They'll ask you to attend video interviews, maybe undertake psychometric testing. So there'll be some sort of digital recruitment process. But what we're finding now really commonly is that a lot of employers are using online recruitment. So perhaps in the past where you would have been invited for a face-to-face interview, employers are now saying, actually, we'd like you to take part in a video interview. And that could be a live video interview, so using something like Skype where you're actually talking to someone, or it could be a recorded interview, so perhaps where you have preset answers and you record your responses to those answers. There's a really good resource actually on the YouTube channel. It was a session we did a few weeks ago around video interviews, so if you want to check that out, that's got some really good advice and tips on how to manage video interviews. Lastly, I just want to say there in terms of the labour market, for 2021 and 2022, many employers are reporting that they are unsure about their recruitment. They are not kind of giving us information about the number of graduate opportunities that are going to be available from next summer. So this is something that we're keeping in contact with our employers and making sure we're up to date with knowing what's going on. So if you are successful and you do secure a role, it may be slightly different to what you'd normally expect. So you might find that you are virtually onboarded, so you join the company in a kind of virtual manner. So this will need that you'll need technology, so you'll need some sort of laptop or PC or some sort of device to do your work on. In most cases, an employer will arrange for that to be sent to you. It's highly likely you might be working at home, so you'll be working remotely. So it's going to be important that you have that technology in place. And as I say, many employers will send a kind of kit to you to ensure that you can do your work. Things like having, good Wi-Fi at home is going to be really important. So, if you are about to start a job, just making sure you've got those things in place. In terms of colleagues, it's going to be really sort of challenging, I guess, to kind of get that connection with colleagues, to kind of naturally meet people as you would perhaps if you were in an office environment or in a work environment. you're not going to bump into someone while you're, making a cup of tea. So you are going to have to try and make a bit more effort here and try and reach out to people. So something you could do maybe is just send an email out to your colleagues and introduce yourself. Hopefully your line manager will kind of introduce you to your team or the wider company, but you can follow that up by just saying, hi, really great to join the team, really great to join the company. If anyone wants to kind of have a virtual conversation, that would be really welcome. So it's just helping you get connected with your colleagues. I put honesty on there because I think this is actually really important. It can be really challenging working at home, particularly if you've got caring responsibilities or you've got something else going on at home. So I think just try and being honest with your employer. Don't overpromise, say you're going to be able to do things that you can't, and just have that dialogue with them to make sure that they're aware of your circumstance. The organisation, so this is about being organised, not the organisation. It's really important to try and have a quiet place somewhere to work from at home that you won't be disturbed or won't be disturbed too much. I know some of my colleagues where we're both trying to use the computer, at different timings. They have a schedule, so making sure that you're available for Zoom meetings or whatever technology that they're using. And help and support. So make sure that you know where to go for support, that you know who to ask if you're getting stuck with IT issues or you're not sure about a piece of work, and is there a mentor or a buddy, or do you go to your line manager? So make sure you ask those questions when you do start your job. And then just lastly, I want to say this is a challenge for all of us, trying to get that work-life balance. And when you work at home, that's much more challenging because if you're in an office, you might do 9 to 5 and you get your train or your tram or your bus home or you cycle home, and you have that break from that environment before you go into your kind of home environment. So you don't get that, you just don't get that when you're working from home. So it's really important to try and put some discipline in place and make sure that you've got that separate space, that you do log off at the time that you're expected to, etc. So if you're fortunate enough to get a job, I just wanted to cover those things. So if you are still looking, so if you're still searching for vacancies, many of you will be familiar with some of these already. So Careers Link is the University of Manchester resource. You can go on there, you can set your filters for current opportunities. There's also those sort of general graduate career websites and job searching websites, so Target Jobs, Milk Round, Grad Cracker if you're interested in STEM careers. LinkedIn's also a really great resource. What I would say with LinkedIn, the jobs that are advertised don't always have the term graduate in the role. You may be looking for words such as associate, executive. So think about the language when you're searching for opportunities, okay? And I've mentioned jobs.ac.uk there. This is largely in the academic field. So if you want to work in a university setting, either teaching or in a support role, I get updates from that every day, and there are opportunities being advertised every day. So it's worth having a look at that to see if there's anything that fits in with your career plans. Okay, so I mentioned many of you will be at very different stages. Some of you might be thinking, gosh, I just don't know where to start. It's also overwhelming. I just don't have a clue. And that's okay. We are here to support you. We're here to help you. And what I want to do at the end, I'll tell you where you can go for support and advice, because it's so important if you are in that place, that you don't panic, you don't make bad decisions, and that you talk it through with someone and you speak to one of the team. Some of you may have applied for a few opportunities and you've not heard back. Some of you might not have applied for anything. You thought, well, I'll leave it and wait till the summer, till after all my work submitted. And again, that's okay. It is important though that you try to put something into action now. You start applying, you start being really proactive. If you have made an application and you've not heard back, or you're not sort of getting very far with it, you're not getting the offer, there could be a couple of things going on there. It could be that employers are still in this crisis and they're still trying to manage their businesses, so they just don't have time at the moment to respond. So that could be one possible kind of scenario. The other scenario might be that the way you're approaching your application might need to be reviewed. So perhaps you're getting stuck at a particular point. So, you're getting to perhaps an assessment centre and you're not getting past that stage. And again, I think this is where the career service can really help you, and we can talk to you about, tools that you can use to practice to really prepare for that stage of the interview. Unfortunately, we have had some students, not just at our university, but certainly my colleagues at other universities, where the graduates had their offer withdrawn. So the employer has said, look, we're just not in a position to move forward on this at the moment. Again, it's about trying to pick yourself up. All those key things that I said earlier about being motivated, trying to keep your energy levels up, trying to stay, positive. That's so important now, because you did achieve that job offer, you did get that, and that's important to remember. You can do it. It's just a case now, you've got to kind of start again, but you know that you can do it. You know that that an employer values what you can offer. So no matter where you are right now, there is help and there is support for you. I thought it'd be really interesting to kind of mention what employers are looking for, because that has changed slightly in the current situation. So there are always those standard things, good communication skills, good teamwork, good organisational skills, being reliable, all that sort of standard stuff. There may be also technical skills that, are expected as part of, your kind of skill set. But what I wanted to do is just relay some of the messages that employers are sharing with us now as part of COVID-19. So they're saying to us, actually, we want to know, what did you do with your time during COVID-19? And if you sat around and watched a lot of Netflix, that's probably not going to look too good to an employer. However, if you've taken the opportunity to do some online courses, or maybe developed your CV or developed your LinkedIn profile and really built up your network, that suggests to an employer that you've actually used your time wisely, that you've made or taken the opportunity to do something that perhaps you wouldn't normally have done. So really think about what you're doing with your time right now and how you can express that to an employer if they ask you that in an interview. Lots of employers do want your degree. They want that academic ability. If you've got strong grades, that's really positive. But alongside that, they also want to know, well, what else have you been doing during the last 3, 4, however many years? If you've been doing a postgraduate, what have you been doing alongside that, if anything? So if you've got any work experience, volunteering, if you've been involved in societies, make sure you sell that to the employer, because that's the sort of stuff that they're looking for, that you've been motivated, you've been driven, you've been active and proactive. I think also a good sense of self-awareness. So knowing, what your strengths are, and during this time, what have you done about that? How have you tried to enhance those strengths? And also, if you've got areas where you need to develop, what have you done during this time to help you develop those skills? So really think about, what are you doing with your time at the moment and what it is that employers are looking for. Okay, I just want to come on to a couple of areas where we find students get stuck. So, you'll get to a certain point and then that you just don't get beyond that. And sometimes that can be quite early on in the recruitment process. So application forms can be mind-boggling to some people. They can find it very confusing, not sure how much to put in, what sorts of examples. So I've just kind of highlighted here some of the kind of common mistakes, if you like, that people make, not just students, but certainly people with long-standing careers can make with applications. So sometimes putting too much in but that isn't relevant. So that quantity over quality, just babbling on, instead of being nice and concise, and perhaps using something like the STAR technique. So the STAR technique is situation, task, action, and result. So that gives you a really nice framework around answering questions and giving evidence. And there is more information about that on the Career Service website. Evidence of skills and knowledge. So, you know, writing a sentence like, I have fantastic communication skills, it's not enough, okay? You need to give that evidence. You need to give some examples of how you've developed them, how you use them, okay? You will be really surprised certainly the number of applications that I see that have, you know, poor grammar, spelling mistakes, poor punctuation. And some employers can be really ruthless about this and actually just, you know, dismiss you as a candidate because of those that behaviour. So make sure, you know, spell check doesn't always pick up everything. You have to read through it. I would also encourage you to get someone else to read your application, just to again proofread it and make sure there's no mistakes. A lot of employers actually that I speak to tell me that the students don't always know about the business. They don't know necessarily what their service or their product is that they deliver. So actually understanding the business that you're applying for, doing some research, you know, understanding what it is that they want from you as an applicant, I think is really important. Again, leaving blank spaces or not completing the question or answering a different question sometimes I've seen. So you've been asked something that you give a kind of a different answer, so that can be rule you out of the application process. And then simply just not answering the question, you know, just kind of leaving it blank. Another area where people get stuck in terms of the recruitment process are the interviews. Can be a very stressful situation, you know, and cause anxiety. So it's really important you try to prepare as much as you can. And again, when you actually get to the interview, once you've done all your research about the company, you've worked out your travel, you know, to the interview, thinking about how you've dressed, whether the dress is appropriate that you're wearing, you know, actually being in the room with the panel, or nowadays having that video interview, making sure that, you know, you're dressed appropriately, that your environment, so you haven't got people walking in and out of the room when you're trying to interview, or, you know, you've got doors banging or the TV's on. So making sure of that kind of background noise when you're having your interview. But of course, this might be the first time they actually sort of see you on video. So having that first impression is so important. You need to try and behave as if you are with that panel or that person, you know, in that space. They will be able to see everything you do. If you start getting a nervous habit and keep, you know, scratching your head or your ear or you're fiddling, they will see all of that. So it's almost amplified on video, because it's like watching TV. You'll see things that perhaps you wouldn't see if someone was stood next to you. So be really conscious about that. Smile, be natural, but think about your body language, and of course make sure you're enthusiastic. You know, you want this job, you want to show them and tell them how motivated, how excited you are about this role in their business. Okay, so what can you do? What can you actually do next? No matter what stage you're at, whether you've had your job withdrawn, your job offer withdrawn, whether you're, you know, completely at the beginning, you don't have a clue what to do, if you keep getting stuck at the same point in the recruitment process, we are here to help. Okay, the Career Service is here to help you make that transition into work. So a really good place, I think, just to start for you in terms of research is just looking at the Career Service website. I think, you know, and I say this as someone who's only recently joined the university, the resources on the website are very good. They're very concise. They are very helpful and can really help you think about and navigate all the kind of things that you need to think about when you're career planning. So there's a great section on there called I don't know what to do. This gives you lots of tips. There's lots of tools on there that can help you figure out what it is your strengths are, what your interests are, etc. Again, don't give up. Please continue to search for, apply for opportunities. Right at the start, I said there are opportunities out there. There are still employers who are recruiting, but you do have to work that bit harder at the moment because the competition is tough, and you need to be looking, you know, I would say at least 3 or 4 times a week at job websites. Get yourself set up on alerts, job alerts, etc. Think about enhancing your experience and your CV whilst we're in this situation. So There are opportunities to do kind of volunteering, and that could be sort of face-to-face or virtual volunteering, things like mentoring, tutoring. There are online courses available that you could be thinking about or undertaking to help build up your CV. So really think about what you're doing during this period of time, because I think employers will be asking you that question, you know, during this time, what did you do? You know, what opportunity did you take from this experience? As I said before, if you are getting stuck at the same point, you know, we can offer support. We can offer one-to-one support to you. We can talk through, you know, that stage that you're at and try to help you plan a way forward so that you're not getting stuck at that same point. We do have software to help you practice for video interviews. So you can actually go through the process of a recorded video interview, and we can give you some feedback on that. That's particularly useful if you've got an upcoming interview in the next few weeks. Telephone interviews, again, I mean, I would suggest you can just practice this with friends or with family, and maybe just set some questions that you think, you know, the employer might ask you as part of that kind of process. But we're here to help. So if you really feel like you need a practice telephone interview, we could arrange that with within the career service. Accessing online workshops and events. So sessions like this are taking place all the time. We've got stuff around video interview, which I mentioned before. We've got activities around LinkedIn. There's just a whole wealth of online workshops that you can be getting involved in during this time. So these are all listed on the career service website, so please do have a look at that. And then just one final thing I want to say is about building your network. So many times you hear about opportunities through your friends, through family, through your colleagues, through your network. So if you have got some free time at the moment, think about building that up, and using a tool like LinkedIn can be a really good resource. So think about building up that network around you to help increase your chance of getting a job, an opportunity. So how to access support, I've mentioned Careers Link there. You can book a one-to-one appointment. So personally, I'm doing lots of Zoom appointments at the moment with students. We have got Skype as well, if that's more convenient for you. We've got our web chat, so that's informal chat, which is very instant, so you get an instant response to that. We've got various social media kind of platforms, so we've got YouTube, we've got Facebook, Twitter, etc. So you can follow us there and check out opportunities. We're always advertising things through our social media. I mentioned the videos that are on YouTube, so anything that we present, like today, that will be uploaded to the YouTube channel, so you can watch it back. The other thing I think is quite useful is our career service blog. So these are quite regularly updated, and they are around topics that are quite relevant at the moment. So, you know, how to kind of deal if your placement's fallen through, or if your job offer's fallen through, or, you know, top tips on kind of surviving COVID-19 in terms of your career and things you can be doing. So there's also a recent really good post on there about postgraduate study. So some of you might be thinking, you know what, I'm going to kind of stay on in education and do postgraduate qualification. So there's some really good stuff on the blog, and that's updated, you know, very, very regularly. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to allow some time for questions. So I'm just going to invite Bernie and Helen back into the session. And what I have got there just on that screen is it's really helpful to get feedback on these sessions. So there is a link there that you can access. If you want to give any feedback on this session, that's really welcome. We're always looking for ways to improve what we do, to make it relevant, to kind of meet your needs. So please feel free to kind of make some comments and provide some feedback. Okay, I'm conscious that I've talked a lot there, so I'm going to have a rest from my voice and listen to Helen and Bernadette. So we've got some questions. I can see you've had some questions submitted. So I'm going to start off with Helen, if that's okay. Are there some questions there that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, so we've not had loads of questions. So another shout out to people, if you do have a question, just pop it in the questions box just on the menu on the right hand side there, and we'll do our best to answer it. So the question that we've had so far is that some employer websites don't provide a lot of information about what they do. What can we suggest to understand their business more in this case? So there's a few things that you can do here. So the first thing that sprung to my mind was LinkedIn. So you can go into LinkedIn. You know, if you've got a basic profile, you can access so much information on there. First of all, you can start by searching for alumni of the university. Filter that down by where they might work. You might find that there's someone who graduated a couple of years ago that works at the company that you're now applying to. So somebody who's got that connection with you already is probably more likely to help you in some way, maybe answer a question, or even, you know, go as far as allow you to sort of meet up or shadow them for a short period of time or something like that. But certainly, I'm sure they would be happy to answer a question if you have that. So LinkedIn is one way. And then thinking along the same sort of lines, we have the Manchester Network, which some of you might be aware of. If not, then you can search for that on the university website. And that's basically an internal University of Manchester version of LinkedIn. So it's alumni, it's current staff, current students who can all sign up there with a profile. But what we found is quite a lot of our alumni have volunteered to answer questions from students. So there's an Ask Me tool within the Manchester Network where you can ask a question that will get fired off to a few people, and hopefully someone will get back to you there. So that's another route, maybe. If you haven't signed up for Manchester Network yet, then I recommend that's something you do as a result of this session. Bernie or Penny, have you got any other suggestions for this?
I think what was going through my mind was that some employers, if they're very small businesses, they tend not to have you know, huge investment perhaps in their website presence. Whereas if you're looking at a top 100, then there will be a lot of information on their website, and it's really about really teasing out that and deepening your research around the website. Often there is much more in there than perhaps at first appears. And I always find a really good place to start is the sort of About Us news. It's the updates, and that's much more organic and moving rather than the static. So the website is like a shop front. And just following on, I think from Helen's point, I think the conversation behind the website tends to be around if they're on social media. They have clients maybe. What are their clients talking about? What's the sector conversation going on? But sometimes if you can connect with them in some way or their sector. So for example, if it's a small, say, marketing organisation in Manchester, then you can start to do some research around the sector within that region and see what the conversation is. So you can really equip yourself to deliver some really good interview answers and some really good application answers by the sector information as well. That would be my addition to that.
Yeah, I think just to add to both of your comments, I've worked with students that have used Glassdoor and Student Room, and so both of those websites, people can post kind of or share their experiences of working for or being interviewed by, you know, companies. So that can be, you know, a useful resource. So that's something else. But I think just to echo what you said, Helen, about kind of LinkedIn, people can be a really great resource in terms of investigating the background of the company, investigating the culture in particular. So if you're going for an interview and you're not sure what the culture of the company is, you may not answer questions in the way that they expect you to. So if it's a very hierarchical company and you've got to get permission for everything you do, you know, and you say, actually, I've got lots of initiative and I'm really autonomous, and you kind of, you know, give it quite a culturally sort of different answer in terms of their organisation, they may see that as a sort of slight negative. So I think having an understanding, you know, what the culture's like is really important, and the way to do that is through those resources that we've mentioned. Bernadette, did you have oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. I was just going to give you some other examples of questions that have been asked. It's great to see some more coming through now. So there's one that's a bit of a quick answer, I suppose, which is what's the best month to apply for most available graduate schemes? So I think the answer is it depends, I'm afraid. I mean, there is a period of time that is particularly busy. So if you are in your final year, the best time for you to be starting to look for the roles, the graduate roles becoming available is probably right at the beginning of semester one. So over this summer, if you do nothing else, then make sure you get your CV and cover letter up to speed so that you're ready in September when a lot of the graduate schemes will start being advertised. So September, October, November is a particularly busy time, but it's not the only time. So if for whatever reason you don't manage to apply during that time, there will be some employers that advertise later in the year. And I think, as Penny mentioned as part of the session, you'll find that SMEs, so small and medium-sized companies, they will often wait quite a bit later. So they've not got as many people to play with in terms of space, budget available to pay for people, pay for salaries, that sort of thing. So they might wait until maybe March, April time before they advertise a role. So there's really different things available throughout the year. But saying that, we're in a very unusual time at the moment. So it could be that some of the larger organisations actually wait and don't advertise their roles in September, October, November like they normally would. You might find that there's another rush maybe immediately after Christmas when people are more certain about what's happening in the economy, about what their own business organisation is looking like. So I don't think there's a specific answer for this, which makes it tricky for you guys, I know. So what I would recommend is that you maybe timetable or put a reminder in your calendar that maybe once a week, once a fortnight, at the same time you go and check a number of different websites to see what's popped up that week or that fortnight, and just try and keep on top of it, and then you won't miss anything. Certainly if there's a specific company that you want to target, go direct to their website. They might have put a message on there about when they release their vacancies for this year. So there's a number of different things that you can do there. So hopefully that's helpful. Bernie, did you want to ask one of the other questions or add to what I've said?
No, I think you've answered that. I've just got my eye on the next question, actually. So, Penny, do you want to add anything to that?
I think probably just to say that lots of websites do allow you to set up notifications so that when an advert goes live or is promoted, you get that notification to, you know, an email address or whatever you've chosen, whichever kind of method you've chosen. So I think signing up for notifications could be really helpful. Okay, Bernadette, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, there's a really interesting question next. That so far the focus has been mostly for graduates, and what about PhDs? And are the recommendations the same? I think just picking up from Helen's point is that there is no right answer about this, dependent upon what sector you're looking to enter into. But I think essentially the messages that were given in that presentation apply across the board. And I'd pick up as well that the Career Service website has a really good specific resource bank for PhD students and those that are coming out of PhD into the job market. The recommendations pretty much are exactly the same. It's about researching the employer. It's about understanding what your PhD experience has given you in terms of your employability skills, which are many and varied. And depending on the sector, then tailoring your application around that. So I would probably connect with the Career Service, and I can send you actually the link to that if that would be helpful. And depending on what sector you're going to go into. Yeah.
No, nothing from me. I think you've answered that, Bernie. I'll pick up on the next question because I'm conscious of time now. So this is a brilliant question, and I'm really pleased that somebody's asked it. How can you gain commercial awareness, especially if you've done a non-business degree and don't understand the lingo or business side of things? So you've absolutely cracked it there. Commercial awareness is something that so many organisations look for nowadays, but it's one of those things that's quite tricky to understand even what it means, let alone actually go and find out about it. For me, commercial awareness is about understanding the organisation that you want to apply to, and then sort of building out from there. So it's the industry that business sits within, and then even broader than that, how that industry operates within this company, within this country, sorry, and then even wider than that, sort of the wider economic factors, political factors, things that are going on in the world that might impact back onto that specific company. So it's about all of that. So you ask yourself, how do you keep up to date generally with what's going on in the world? So it's the news, it's reading lots online, it's using LinkedIn, and I come back to LinkedIn again. It's a brilliant tool for those of you who've never accessed it before. You can join groups on LinkedIn that are specifically focused on the particular area that you're wanting to join. So, for example, the energy industry, there's probably thousands of groups on there that you can join, and it's people who are like-minded. They either have an interest in the energy sector, or maybe they work in the energy sector, and they will be posting articles quite regularly that others will comment on. So not only have you got to read the article, but actually you're getting opinions from these different experts in their field as well. So it'll help you to form your own opinion of things. So I think there's probably a number of different things that you can do there. We've mentioned talking to people before, so reaching out to people that work in that organisation already. There's often chartered organisations that you can join depending on what sector you want to go into as well, where they'll send you, a monthly newsletter with what's going on in that sector. There's so many different things that you can do, but hopefully that answers your question. I don't know if the others have anything to add there.
I'll just add very quickly, because I am conscious of time. It can start on a very, very small level, and I only had this conversation with a student earlier this week, which is why I just wanted to share it with you. And they asked just this question: how do I develop commercial awareness? I don't have any commercial awareness. How do I get it? And when we talked through the work experience, she'd had a part-time job in Domino's Pizza. And just by simply, it's kind of raising your awareness, the context within which you're doing your part-time work. So it's kind of like, how does your role convert to the benefit of the business? What's your purpose? Is to sell pizza. How many pizzas do you have to sell in order to make the business successful enough in order to pay the wages of the people around you? So it's just really starting to ask questions, even in a very macro level, in your local level, around, have a chat with your manager if you're doing a part-time job in a bar or a restaurant. How many beers do you have to serve in a bar in order to make it a viable and financially viable business and pay salaries and make a profit? So it's really it can start in a really small way and just raising your awareness of asking more questions. That's a good way to start.
Yeah, I'd build on that even more, actually, Bernie. You've just made me think of what I was going to say originally, which was if you have never worked in your life, you will find it even more difficult to access this commercial awareness. So if you have some time over this summer period, look for a part-time job or something over the summer holidays. It doesn't have to be a formal internship or a placement. It can be working in a local supermarket. So some of you might think, I don't want to stock shelves or I don't want to work on a till, but actually it's so much more than that. You would be immersed in a business that is so current and relevant at the moment. It's not only about you putting beans on the shelf. It's about you interacting with customers in these really difficult times and building that skill set. It's about understanding what the demands of the business are. What are customers asking for at the moment? Is there availability for certain products? Where are they coming from in the world? Why might that be affected? You know, right the way down to health and safety of everyone. And it's just thinking about all of those business issues, you know, cost, everything to do with money, paying people's wages, whether there's inflation in certain product costs, that sort of stuff. It's all commercial awareness. So if you do nothing else, maybe look to one of your local supermarkets or a retailer and see if there's any way that you can get involved over the summer holidays. And that should give you the first step in improving your commercial awareness.
The other thing I just wanted to add in terms of kind of accessing information, there are the chambers of commerce, so they tend to bring together lots of businesses across local areas. So there's the Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce. There's ones everywhere across the country. Sort of pretty much every area has their own Chamber of Commerce, and they all have websites, and they provide information about the local economy, about areas of growth, where the investment is. So, you know, just tapping into that in terms of that local level. So if an employer is located in a particular location, you can actually just use that as a point of reference as well to find out what's happening in that area. Okay, any more questions?
We have one more. Do we have time for one more? Okay, let's do it. This is a very frequently asked question, and I'm going to disappoint you by not having a specific answer. But how many jobs do you suggest a new graduate apply to increase the probability of enrolment and success? And normally, how long does it take from an online application through to getting an interview invitation? So, does anybody else? Penny, do you want to have a go at that?
I think it's very variable, and I'm not copping out by saying that at all. Yeah. I think particularly at the moment, I know students that have applied for jobs back in February and they haven't heard anything, that it's literally been radio silence because many businesses have gone into crisis. You know, their HR teams are trying to manage very, very difficult situations. So I think, you know, what I would say is, you know, don't put, I guess, manage your expectations around that. I don't think you're going to apply on a Monday and get an interview by Friday. You know, that is very unlikely to happen. Occasionally, by some sort of miracle, that might happen, but it's very rare. So, I mean, in terms of recruitment processes, you know, bigger companies tend to take a lot longer. I think Helen mentioned that before. They are big machines, so that you'll go through quite a lengthy kind of recruitment process. Smaller companies tend to move things a little bit quicker, so there might not be as many stages to go through, but it really does vary. And I'd say at the moment, potentially things are a bit slower than we would normally find, you know, if we were outside of a pandemic.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Penny. You know, you only just have to look at the university to see how many people are working from home at the moment. And, you know, for anyone who's tried to contact a bank in the last couple of months, you'll know that the waiting time is so much longer. The same applies for recruitment, although it's one of those things that actually can be done quite well remotely. So you might not find an impact. But just coming back to the first part of this question here, how many jobs do you suggest a new graduate applies to increase the probability of getting to the next stage? I think there's one message here for me, and that is quality over quantity. So we see so many students coming to see us in the career service who have sent out 50 CVs and cover letters to organisations, and they've had nothing back. One of the first questions that I always ask is, was that the same CV that you sent every time? And normally the answer is yes. So I would say that rather than spending time doing one CV and sending it in a scattergun approach to lots of different places, think about maybe 10 or even 20 of the roles that you really want to apply to, companies that, you know, you've always admired, you've got really strong rationale for wanting to apply to those roles, and spend more time on each of those applications to make them brilliant and make you stand out. you know, nobody will argue with the fact that it's a competitive market out there for graduate roles. You know, some of the larger organisations could have 10,000 plus applications for a handful of roles. So you've really got to spend the time making your application right. And it might feel like you've got so many other priorities with deadlines and, you know, work commitments, maybe that sort of thing. But the time that you put in now will help you in the long run, which is why if you can make the most of the time over the summer to get as close as you can to having a near perfect CV, then for each of those roles that you want to apply for, all you'll need to do is tweak it a bit, which might take half an hour or so for each application. And also thinking a bit sort of longer term and planning your time. If you get all of your applications out of the way in September, October, November time, then actually when it gets to semester 2, when you're really struggling with time in terms of your dissertation or any projects that you're doing, actually it's one less thing to worry about then. So the best case scenario is that you apply beginning of semester 1 and you might know by Christmas whether you've got that job ready lined up for the following year. So start early and quality over quantity, I would say. And obviously, as we've been saying all the way through this, the Career Service are here to help you every step of the way. So if you're struggling, if you've sent lots of applications, you're not sure where you're going wrong, come and see us. If you've got one role that you really, really want above any other and you want a second pair of eyes on that application, book an appointment and we'll by all means have a look at that for you. So hopefully that helps. I can see that we've got one more question come through. Penny, how are we doing for time?
Yeah, we'll take one more.
Should we say the last one?
Yeah.
Last one. Okay, so I've not read it yet. So I'm wanting to move away from my degree area and finding each job I apply to rejects me for a lack of experience. Do you have any suggestions of how I can improve? I tailor my CV for every job I apply for. That was going to be my first point, actually. Ladies, have you got anything that you would contribute to this answer?
In the absence of the context, I think my very brief advice would be you might benefit from just emailing your CV with perhaps the job description that you've applied to and been rejected for lack of experience to the Career Service, and we can at least cast our eye over it and see whether there's any standout improvements that we might recommend in the CV drafting. Because if it's a consistency, then there may be some tweaks in that application process. So it's not about you and your experience, it's just something in the drafting is perhaps hiding some experiences that you might have that can be articulated more clearly to support your application. That would be my quick fire answer.
Sure.
So we can email you that connection. Actually, they're in the slides, aren't they? Yes.
Yeah. So just to add to that, Bernie, just very briefly again, looking at your transferable skills, have you got the transferable skills that will allow you to access a different field? And I guess if you don't, it's like, well, how can you get that? What can you do to enhance those skills or get those skills to really increase your chances? That may be, you know, working voluntarily in a particular sector or particular field. It might be, you know, work shadowing. It may be actually undertaking sort of further qualifications to really, you know, in that area that you're looking to break into. So I think looking at the transferable skills and how you're selling that is vitally important. Helen?
Yeah, I think you've summed it up really well there, and I completely agree with Bernie that the context would probably be a bit helpful here in terms of the, you know, what degree you're studying at the moment and what you're trying to break into. So yeah, this is probably one where it would be great for you to book an appointment with a careers consultant and we can talk through with you in a little bit more detail there.
That's wonderful. So thank you both so much for taking those questions today and supporting me. Thank you to everyone that's been participating and watched the webinar. Thank you so much for your questions. Hopefully they've been answered satisfactorily. And of course, if you do want some help, please get in contact with the Career Service. We're here, as Helen had mentioned, we're all working from home, so we are available. There are various appointments available at different times. So just reach out to us, use the Career Service website, and we are there more than happy to help. Okay, have a great day.